And welcome back, fourth and long fans. It's your AFL and AFLW correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with a round two review. And for those of you watch the YouTube video, you will notice a very familiar face hopping on. Mr. Gil Griffith, my resident Frio Docker super fan here, hopping on to be my guest host this week. Gil, it's great to see you again, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to see you too. You talked about how cold it is out in Des Moines right now, and I had the nerve to complain that I can't see the Pacific Ocean outside my window. But yeah, you've you've been bearing the brunt of a lot of cold and a lot of snow.
Oh yeah, let's just safe to say for the Australians, we're hitting negative digits in Celsius, and the Aussies that I have talked to cannot believe it. So, very interesting. But I guess we're a different breed here in the Midwest, I guess. But that's not what we're here for. We are here to talk AFLW and AFLW round two, sir. I have to say it was one heck of a round. Before we go through the reviews, just real quick, kind of give me a little bit of thoughts of what were your thoughts on the Pride round. Pride, the first ever round celebrating Pride. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. Kind of what were your thoughts?
Well, first of all, it was kind of a shame that it got overshadowed by COVID. The fact that COVID is still a specter that's looming over the sport because of all the matches that had to be rearranged. And, you know, of course, you had Frio and West Coast that didn't even know they were going to be playing or even training until 3 days before the round. You had Adelaide and GWS kind of in a holding pattern, and they ended up playing in front of no fans the way that the Western Derby was played so that Adelaide and GWS could meet quarantine restrictions. So it was sad that it was overshadowed, but in some places it looked like it came off really well. Really liked seeing the different Guernseys that the girls were wearing and the support that they had. Although one person did comment on Twitter, and I kind of agreed with this, is that the AFLW is going to have to come up with some kind of equitable plan as far as the trans population goes and people playing there. Men who are transitioning into being women. And I mean, the Hannah Mounsey case has been a really well celebrated. I mean, written about extensively.
Mm-hmm.
Case where Hannah Mounsey feels like she's been done wrong by the powers that be. So that is going to be an issue that they're going to have to deal with, because if it is fully Pride round, you can't leave the T out of the LGBTQ plus IA, as they would say in Australia. So that's going to be another issue that they're going to have to come to grips with.
Definitely, for sure. And it was cool to see that Geelong actually did have the trans flag on their Guernseys, which I thought was a very nice touch. But I completely agree. It is kind of, if you're gonna celebrate Pride Round, you can't leave out a certain section. And the Hannah Mounsey case is one that I think is still baffling to me, that the AFL keeps finding a way to keep a person that has done everything according to Olympic Committee standards to be able to play, and continually she keeps getting roadblock after roadblock throwing up in her way. I very much hope that she can play footy here really soon, but well, we
Yeah.
can't make time go by too quickly. So let's hop into the first game of the round. Probably hard to say this wasn't one of the best games of the round. Western playing Carlton. The Western Bulldogs win this by 6. Gil, I gotta ask, what were your thoughts on this game?
Well, my thoughts were that, and I wrote about this in my weekly column for Footyology, that why can't I say my editor's name right? Rowan Connolly curates. He was the former chief football. Rowan, sorry if you're listening to this, mate. But anyway, um, Carlton has dug itself in a bit of a hole, and they are definitely, or were going into this year, Premiership favorites. And you never want to start a season 0-2, especially when there are only 9 matches. So we're looking at the first third of the season, and Carlton's already on the back foot. And the fact that they lost their first 2 matches by one straight kick has really got to be eating at them. And Carlton had so many opportunities in this one. If you think about it, in the fourth quarter, they went inside 50 upwards of 16 times in the first 10 to 15, the first 10 minutes of the fourth quarter. They went inside 50 16 times and they came away with nothing. No major scores. So if you look at that, those are just wasted opportunities. And the Bulldogs are pretty wasteful in the first quarter themselves. They missed a couple of shots from point blank range and missed a set shot on the siren. So you really have to wonder what is going on at Carleton there. Taylor Harris had a really good game. That she kicked a couple of goals, took some excellent marks. Um, you know, you had the ball winners doing their thing, but if I'm Carleton right now, it might not be panic stations, but it's getting damn close. And they really have got to look to really deep within to see what they can conjure up to try and turn the season around, because otherwise it's going to be too late, too quick.
Yeah, and definitely with a 9 game season, only 6 teams making the finals, it almost makes the second half of the year to where it's like 9 game season. You got to win at least 5 of your last 7 games, which is not going to be easy because you still got some tough games still up on their schedule. I know the fixture list is kind of in fluctuation, but there's still a possibility of still getting Frio, Adelaide, Melbourne, so many really good teams. North Melbourne, there's 4 there. I mean, that you're basically telling me of those 4 games, you got to go at least 2-2 and then win the other 3. So I think Carleton is a little bit going, oh boy, because this week is almost a must win, which is really scary to think. In 3rd game of the year, and you're already in a must win situation for the Carleton Blues. And Maddie Prasparkas, she gets her touches, but you can tell there's some frustration. She's starting to get tagged more. She's starting to get much more attention than I think she was expecting, which you kind of have to, you would think she would expect that, being
And
a
she's
Brownlow
getting
medalist.
reported too.
Oh yeah,
I mean, this is the second
unfortunately.
week in a row that she's been reported for rough conduct. So she's got to watch her step. And the other thing too is it puts even more pressure on the strongest teams to prey on the weak.
Hmm.
And if you look at some of the weakest teams around, and you think about the expansion factor, that you've got some clubs in there that are only second year or third year clubs,
Hmm.
that the real strong clubs in the league are going to have to really feast on those teams, not only just to beat them, but to build up percentage, because that's going to
Definitely.
be a factor too. Because the way I see it, you've got 6 teams right now, 6 of the 14 who I think are legitimate flag contenders.
Hmm.
Carleton is one of those 6, but the more that they're playing each week and squandering those opportunities, they could find themselves on the outer. And then if you think about the fact that they haven't had to travel, they've been at home for one match and technically on the road for the other, playing at Whitten Oval.
Hmm.
But for my money, they're too good a side to be having this kind of a start.
Definitely agree with that. And some would say, well, they play St. Kilda and they play Western. Well, St. Kilda did not look so hot, but we'll chat about there in just a second. So we'll hop the second game of the year, second game of the round, Collingwood v Geelong, in a game that honestly this one kind of flip flopped a little bit for me. Collingwood ends up getting the win by 29, 45-16. But man, those first 10 minutes, Geelong looked like I was kind of going, okay, is North Melbourne that good? That Geelong was they were kind of handling the Collingwood there in the early minutes of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Geelong took the momentum of that last fourth quarter against North, and I think they carried it into that first round. I mean, think about up front. You think about what happened in the first minute. You think about Olivia Barber playing in her first match, and with less than a minute, she helps them do something that they had trouble doing all game against North, and it was the most miraculous of goals. It was off the back of her heel,
Mm-hmm.
going straight through, and so that had to make Geelong feel really good, and they were up and about. They had a great start, but 4-quarter effort. We talk about it a lot in footy, the 4-quarter effort, and the younger sides that haven't been in the competition too long are really struggling to have that. So, I kind of expected that Geelong might hang in for a little bit, but if you think about that Collingwood midfield, that is just absolutely loaded with talent. And I think it really presents a real big dilemma to opposition coaches who are thinking about tagging anyone in that midfield. Who do you go to? Do you go to Brianna Davey? Do you go to Steph Chiachi? Do you go to, any number of people running through that midfield that are really, really strong? And if you look at the ball winning counts, the possession counts, they are absolutely not short of quality mids. And it's kind of like an analogy that you and I probably know about baseball, which is in baseball, you can never have too many good pitchers.
Mm-mm.
And I always like to make that comparison with footy. You can never have too many good midfielders. There's no such thing as a glut of midfielders. So, Collingwood really, really was impressive, and so they're starting their year 2-0, and and they were impressive in their win against Carleton. And anytime I think you have that core group of people through the middle that can deliver the ball up forward, that is going to be dangerous. I also did mean to mention Britt Benici in that group of midfielders too. I mean, she had 24 possessions and was on her A game. And that midfield is going to be very hard to stop. And the thing about Collingwood, of course, last year they had the most All-Australians in the competition in AFLW. They had 5. Now, granted, 5 players doesn't make a team. And there's that old expression, you'd rather have a champion team than a team of champions. But Collingwood are looking very dangerous right now. And I'd be feeling really good if I were in their boots.
Definitely, for sure. And that Collingwood team, the depth is going to really help them out, especially in the midfield. And I completely agree. Like some of the best teams in the men's game are the ones that have 3, 4, 5, 6 different guys that can rotate through the midfield, because not only do you save the legs for the future part of that, but then you let the talent come through, and then you can shift them up forward. Then they can be goal snakes and kick some goals. So it's always the midfield. Having too many midfielders or having too many midfielders is a problem. I think every coach in the AFLW would love to
And it's a
have.
good problem.
Definitely, for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing about Geelong that they're going to have to watch out for is undisciplined acts, because let's think about this. They gave away 3 50-meter penalties
Mm-hmm.
right in the start of the match, right? And so, here's the thing. A team like Geelong can't make those types of mistakes against Collingwood and expect to be long for the world. They can't. When you give a side that many more opportunities, they're going to punish you. And looking at that, when you look at what happened, the Cats could have held Collingwood scoreless in the first quarter, but they conceded 3 50s that yielded 2 different goals. So that's something that's down to coaching too. So they're going to have to be more disciplined. They're going to have more 4-quarter focus. But I certainly liked at least a half of what I saw from them, as opposed to what they put up against North.
Definitely, for sure. So we'll hop on. There's a good game there. We'll hop on to another one, and probably for me, from what I keep hearing when I was having my discussions early part of the years, the surprise game of the surprise team in the first 2 rounds has been the Melbourne Demons. Melbourne plays Richmond, ends out winning the game by 28, 44-16. Melbourne is 2-0, and after all of the exodus from this team, I'm trying to figure out how this team is 2-0. Yes, they play the Tigers, a Tigers team that is still learning, is getting better, and a team that honestly seems to have the yips in front of goal. I'm still trying, kind of like what your article that I read, Katie Brennan's yips in front of the goals has been quite noticeable, unfortunately. So, I mean,
I don't know. I mean, maybe it was from meeting me, because I met Katie 5 years ago, and I hate to think that I put a hex on her, because she's a lovely person. And it was really, I was on a radio show with Andy Marr when I was promoting my book from 5 years ago, and I met her, and we had this great conversation and everything. But man, she has got to be feeling completely cursed in front of the goal. She hasn't kicked one since round 3 of last year, and then we get to a point where we're getting right to halftime, and Katie picks up that loose ball, and she's got a chance to bring Richmond within 1 straight kick. And for all the world, it looked like it was going through, and it smacks the post at the last second. And then
mm-hmm.
if you think about the previous week in round 1, kicking on her home deck at Punt Road Oval, it was like kicking into a wind tunnel. And she kicked 0-3. It'd be kind of like kicking into that stiff winter Iowa wind,
Mm-hmm.
where you're not going to get it through the big sticks. So, and it's just interesting, because I remember with Richmond that they scored again within the first 30 seconds of the match, or the first minute, after Sabrina Frederick picked up a 50-meter penalty and a free kick. So they were off to a really good start. But in Melbourne, I'll tell you what, the thing I'm really noticing about Melbourne, we talk about COVID-19 and preventions and vaccinations. Well, teams are getting vaccinated by Karen Paxman.
Mm-hmm.
She has just been superb in the first couple of weeks. I mean, mullet and all. I mean, she's killing it out there. And Lily Mithen has really been a revelation. And they look dangerous. And then look at Tyler Hanks. Tyler Hanks this week was a rising star, and she had another fantastic game. And then where did Alyssa Bannon come from, kicking those 2 goals?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, Melbourne looks like they're really good. So I would count them in that top 6. And you're right, despite that exodus, they look like a really strong club. And you're right, they really could be maybe the surprise club of the year.
Definitely, for sure, and it's really good to see it, and I agree. I saw that mullet on Paxton, and it was just like, wow, that you got to be a good footy player to be able to rock that, no matter men's or women's. So, and she's a
Absolutely.
ball hawk. She's there all the time, and the other thing that's great to see is seeing Daisy Pierce back playing again, and she's
Oh
been
yeah.
playing really, real well. I think she played really, really well in this game too. But I don't know, that Richmond team, they're gonna get a win here soon. I can just feel it. If Katie Brennan can get off the schneid, get a goal kick, that dangerous forward line with her and Frederick up front, if they could just get the service, they could be a dangerous team. They
And then
just
look
gotta
at
find
Monique
that.
Conti.
Yep, yep. And they still
Yeah.
they've got the number one overall draft pick. Her name is escaping me. I don't know why right now. Ellie McKenzie, I think it is.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes,
Mackenzie, because
yes. And
it's interesting because yeah,
and
same
she's
same initials as someone who's really been impressing for Melbourne. Um, Eliza McNamara.
mhm,
She's been really impressive too in her first matches. And that brings me to something else. I love the fact that Aussies, as you know, love to shorten everything
mhm,
and come up with all the names. I love the fact now that you look at the AFLW lists, and there's not a single woman named Deborah, but every team, every run has Debbies,
mhm.
debutantes. That's really cool. I like that. Thinking about how many Debbies does your side have this week?
Yeah, that's awesome. Ellie McKenzie, she's looked really good when she's got it. I think she just needs to kind of get used to the up step in talent, up step in skill. I mean, she's incredibly talented. Her skill's going to come out. It just takes a little time. Not everybody is a Rowell and has Brownlow votes and is the top star and the rising star every week. It's going to take a little time. But this Tigers outfit, I think they're starting to come along. This is a good Melbourne team. I think they played pretty well for in spots. So I think this is definitely a team that I think they're going to get their first win this year. I just have a feeling they will. So we'll jump from the optimism train to a game that honestly, for me, I find a little bit disappointing. I really thought the Saints had a really good first game against Carlton, and North Melbourne's class and their total overall talent kind of overwhelmed them. The 26-point win, 36-10. I mean, am I off a little bit in thinking that maybe the Saints kind of underperformed more than North Melbourne overperformed?
I might think so, except for one thing, because you got to give credit to North Melbourne and how they were defensively in the second half, where they just did not even let St. Kilda get a sniff. I mean, it was kind of like Star Wars, because for St. Kilda, their forward 50 was a galaxy far, far away. They couldn't even get close, right? And North is such an embarrassment of riches that it was almost like the lesser lights, so to speak. And this is not to dismiss or disrespect any of their players, but it wasn't really the household names who really stepped up for North Melbourne. And thinking also about how Rhiannon Watt for St. Kilda pretty much held Emma King in check in the ruck battle, and Emma King just tore Geelong apart. I mean, that first quarter in round one, where she had 9 touches and kicked 3 goals and had 8 hitouts. I mean, I joked in my column about round one, she did everything but drive the team bus
Hmm.
to the stadium, Emma King. So looking at this one, Ellie Gavalis, fantastic player. I really, really like watching her play. And again, talking about undisciplined acts, when she practically got suplexed and got a free kick and was able to kick a goal, these sides that have really not been so strong, they can't make mistakes like that against really strong sides like North Melbourne. And, here's the other interesting thing was that the Saints beat North Melbourne in the inside 50 count. They actually had 2 more inside 50s than North did. And then also they got more than double the number of free kicks. So if you think about that, the Saints just weren't able to take advantage of their opportunities. And even though the Saints started strong in that third quarter, again, undisciplined acts can really be a momentum killer, and especially that becomes more pronounced. I know you've probably talked about this with guests before, but the 50-meter penalty is even more of a damaging blow in women's footy than it is in men's footy.
Hmm.
That's just because let's face it, sometimes there aren't as many players that can kick as long, and you give somebody suddenly a huge advantage like that. It makes really that just is prime territory for getting punished. You are asking for trouble if you do that. And and then think about this: the way that North were able to lock the ball in their forward 50 in that first half. I mean, even Talia Randall, someone in defense, was kicking goals. And so, so when you have your back line pushing all the way forward, and I made this comment in the column, the Kangaroos kind of look like an occupational army. It looked like Myanmar out there, surrounding them, and just occupying that area. It was crazy.
Yeah, and the worst part about that is that the defenders for St. Kilda, they can't get any rest because they can't get the ball out, and it wears on you and wears on you. That's one of those. If you can get that early in a game, you can really kill the legs of the defenders. I mean, I've done it before,
Yeah.
playing before, and it gets stuck, and you're just repeat effort, repeat effort, repeat effort. It just wears on you, and it's so hard. So I think that probably helped with it too. Is that because North Melbourne can lock it in, continue to pump in, that it wears the defenders out. It makes their
Yeah.
job that much harder to try to defend. Now, it does make it harder to hit a lead because there's so many bodies there. So
Hmm.
sometimes it can have its good and its bads. It makes leading that much harder because if you lead in a gap, well, if you've got 8 other people, it's hard to find those spaces, which then makes pinpoint passing a lot more difficult. So that
And
was
then the other thing is too, I think the Saints missed one memo, which is never leave Jazzy Garner unattended in the goal square,
never.
uh, because
Can't do that.
she took an uncontested mark in the back of the goal square, and it was just easy pickings right from there. And she's too good a player to give her any amount of space. And the Saints are learning. I think that they showed a little bit more in the first round than what we might have expected. But I just think that the Roos are just so well rounded that they didn't hit the scoreboard as they normally do. But it's kind of like and I hate to delve into cliches, but they just have a lot of ways in which they can beat an opposing side, and this is
Mhm.
just one of those ways.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Speaking of goals, I love this transition. Unfortunately, the next game was quite a goal fest, but only sadly one way, as the Brisbane Lions beat the Gold Coast Suns by 65-2. And
You know what I'm doing?
if you can
I'm just
see
I'm just
if you
kind
can
of doing
see the
what the
video, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Griffin is dancing because unfortunately this game is marred a little bit with some commentator comments about a couple of Gold Coast players being caught on camera in between play dancing to the music at the ground. I don't know about you. Gil and I kind of chatted about this just a little bit before we started recording. If those two ladies are on the field next week, um, I seriously have some questioning about the coaching staff at Gold Coast if they can't find a way to find these two a nice little spot on the bench, because that is not a good look, and it makes it even worse when you get absolutely waxed in this game.
I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I really, when I was watching this match, and I'm watching with the missus, we're both watching, and we kind of look at each other and saying, well, am I seeing what I'm thinking, what I think I'm seeing here? And then I even had to rewind later because I wanted to quote Beck Goddard exactly right and hear what she was saying. And if you hear the playback, it's funny because the male commentator, says, I just think I've seen a look of horror on the faces of Mel Hickey and Beck Goddard. And you knew it was coming next. And,
Mm-hmm.
and I love Beck Goddard's quote, we all love a good banger, don't we? But, if you're playing in this match and you are down by 40 points and you have kicked a total of 1 point and you're starting the fourth quarter, I'm sorry, you got to focus on that contest. So I was shocked. I think my jaw was hitting the floor. And, hey, footy's all about having a good time and all the fun, but come on, these are professional athletes. They are professional athletes. You are getting paid to do a job, and your team is getting embarrassed. They are getting their butts handed to them. And this is also a regional match and the Q clash and all that. So bragging rights for the state are on and everything. And the other thing that was really, really mind-boggling to me is we're talking about the same side that made the playoffs last year, Gold Coast. Now, granted, they got demolished in the first round by a strong Fremantle side, but we've already seen the Gold Coast had trouble playing against Melbourne. They couldn't keep that four-quarter focus. And how would this look? I mean, you're about to score the lowest output in a match in AFLW history, And the comment I made on this one in writing was that a couple of the girls looked like they were more interested in clubbing than pulling their club out of the crater that they were in. And I've never coached footy. I just play a footy coach on TV. Just kidding. That's an inside American joke there. But if I'm coaching, if I'm senior coach, there is no way they're running out for me. No way. And here's the other thing that's interesting too. I mean, you have a player on Gold Coast and someone like Sarah Perkins playing up forward. And I just wonder if she had a look at that because, Sarah Perkins is a two-time premiership player with Adelaide. And, it doesn't surprise me that Beck Goddard laid into those two girls as she did. She was the coach of those sides. And I cannot possibly imagine the spray that those two would have gotten from Beck Goddard carrying on like that. So, yeah, it was a real bad look. Real bad.
Oh man, and the worst part about it is this does unfortunately taint a very well played Brisbane Lions squad that did so well, but unfortunately this is going to taint this game a little bit because of this fact. But like I heard this discussion on a couple of episodes, and I think this is a perfect time to bring this in. Is do you Gil, since you are a writer and you do reviews on your the website and different stuff like that, do you feel that it's perfectly okay to criticize the female player as much as say the media does for the male player? Because I heard this discussion a little bit, I can't remember what game I heard it on, that they said that I think the women of the AFLW really do not mind getting criticized because they want to feel like they're being treated the same way as the men. And I think this
Yeah.
discussion here is a perfect example of that. If this happened in a men's game, in an AFL men's game, this would be on every single news station across the entire country. Every
Yes,
single
it would.
footy broadcast would be talking about it.
Oh, no doubt about it. And I think the thing that you're bringing up is perfect. And I'm really glad that AFLW players welcome this because it's about equity
Mm-hmm,
and they are professional
mm-hmm,
athletes. So absolutely they should be held to the same standard. We know that it's a relatively young competition. We know that the skills are getting a lot better from where it was in the first year. But, this is not an intramural year 9 volleyball game. This is
mm-hmm,
professional footy. And if I'm a member of the Suns and I'm paying for my membership, this is absolutely not what I want to see.
mm-hmm,
It really isn't. So I'm not saying that that these two girls should be tarred and feathered
mm-hmm,
or put in front of a firing squad. But this is really you just cannot do this if you are a professional athlete. Um, and even let's even flip it on its head. Even if the Suns were up by 40 points,
mm-hmm.
it still wouldn't have been a good look,
Nope.
because then you're thinking about showmanship and about rubbing it in the faces of the opponent. And I'm a high school teacher too, as you know, and one of the things that I'm very fond of telling all my kids is, there's a time and a place for everything.
Mm-hmm,
And if you want to get your groove on, okay, well, you can do that before the match. You play all the music you want in the change rooms before, right? Go to the club after the game, but that's not the place to do it. And so what I will say is I don't think it's a bad look necessarily for the competition. I think that's generalizing too much, but I think
mm-hmm,
it is a bad look for a young team trying to find its feet and going and well on its way to being thoroughly embarrassed out there. And that only added to the embarrassment. So yeah, that is absolutely not where you want to be as a club. And I know that uh, if I were the coach, I would be feeling really under fire for that. And you didn't see the two major ball winners involved in those shenanigans in the center square either. So, but one thing I was impressed with, not with the Suns, because there was just very little you could be impressed with them, but was the Brisbane side and Jesse Wardlaw, and kicking 4 goals and winning the Q Clash medal. I mean, she looked really dominant up forward, took some great marks. And here's the other thing I thought was a really nice moment of that match. She kicks 4 goals, and then late in the piece, she could easily line up and kick her 5th. And what does she do? She passes to a teammate who had kicked 2 behinds and is yet to kick an AFL goal, and she passed it to her. And the match was no longer in doubt. And I thought that was just a really, really beautifully unselfish moment. in that match. And then another thing on Jesse Wardlaw, I have to say, um, my missus is slowly coming around to watching more AFLW because she's a Sydney fan and the Swans don't have a women's team yet. But she
Don't
was
rub
really
it in,
taken
sir.
with
Don't
Jesse
rub it in.
Wardlaw's style of play. So what's that?
I said, don't rub it in, sir. It's
What
fun
was?
enough.
Oh, okay, all right. I won't rub it in. But here's the thing: that my wife got so interested in Jesse Wardlaw as a player, she actually looked up her Instagram page and found out some really interesting things about Jesse Wardlaw and her Maori heritage from Aotearoa, New Zealand,
Hmm.
and her social involvement, her involvement in Black Lives Matter Australia, and some of the other causes that she's taken up. And yeah, so she's become a real leader. And then Dakota Davidson, adding a bag of four, and Dakota was one of the only players that could kick through that wind the previous week at Punt Road Oval. And thinking about Great Abodi. I mean, the three of them combined for 10 goals. So that is a really potent forward line. And so I think that they're putting a lot of clubs on notice there. That is a really strong forward line. I would put that forward line up against Fremantle as far as one that is really potent and brimming with talent.
Definitely, for sure. You got a lot of coaches as later on this year going to be sitting up late at night trying to figure out how to keep these girls off the scoreboard. So I think we'll kind of let that one lay a little bit. Unfortunately, a little bit too much discussion about a side that really just did not cover themselves in glory. We'll be as kind as possible as we can. So we'll move on from there. And another amazing performance again from the Crows. The Crows beat the Giants again in an Adelaide game that was thrown together late. So I can kind of understand it. And this GWS team has been through so much, having to move away because of the COVID issues in the in the western part of Sydney, and then having to move out, and then having to move to Albury and just and all that. So this GWS team, you kind of have a little bit of sympathy for, because they've just been through so much. They lose a teammate in the off season, they have all the COVID issues, and they have to play on the West Coast, and then they find out that they've got to then they have to quarantine, and then they think they're not going to play, and then all of a sudden, well, now they're going to play Adelaide. So this GWS team is, I've got a little bit of a soft spot for them, just because they've been through so much. They gave so much effort, but again, this Crows team is just so good when they want to be. That the 62-15 47 point lead, I mean, is this Crows team back to the potential of being a flag contender, in your opinion?
I don't think there's any doubt. And I think the other thing too with GWS, also Brid Stack and her horrible injury that she suffered,
Hmm.
just adds to that sort of gray cloud over GWS right now. But I don't think there's any doubt at all about Adelaide being a powerhouse and reestablishing themselves. And one of the things that for me was really surprising was that I was prepared to see Anne Hatchard on the bench and not playing. And, almost like she has risen. Here she is, losing the soft helmet and just playing like a monster on the field, which was great to see. She had a cork calf, and it looked like she was in doubt, and she had that head clash from a couple of weeks back in training. And there she was, just absolutely ripping it up. And that midfield, boy, I mean, I'm thinking ahead already with Trent Cooper at Fremantle and the headache that he might have about who to tag if he decides to go that route, because this is where it gets really interesting with Adelaide, all the magnet moving that's happened. You take Stevie Lee Thompson from up forward, you move her down back. You run Erin Phillips through the middle, and she missed most of last year. Chelsea Randall's come back after missing all of last year, and she's up forward. And then taking a defender from Melbourne and Ashley Woodard and moving her up. And it's really interesting the way that magnet shifting has worked and really gelled so well with Adelaide. They are a frightening side because honestly, I don't know who you send to whom on that club. Not that the other teams don't have talent, but and I haven't even mentioned Ebony Marinoff.
Hmm.
And again, the Crows were fortunate in that it was adjudicated in a way that she was able to play and not miss 3 weeks. So, they are really looking like a fearsome side. Not that I've seen since we go back to the early part of when they won their second premiership. That is a dangerous side right there.
Definitely, for sure. And they're all, when you have Aaron Phillips on your squad, you're instantly a flag contender. And when she's at her normal absolute greatness, there is very few better. So we'll go to the last game. Your beloved Frio Dockers play their most heated rivals in the Derby in a downpour. This game, I did not actually get to see this game. I actually did watch the highlights of this, and even the highlights showed that these ladies have some amazing skill for wet weather footy. I was absolutely very impressed. Yes, the scoring is going to be down. That tends to happen in the men's game. 23-14. Frio only wins by 9. And this is a West Coast team that I think a lot of people thought was going to be down near the bottom. This was a nice performance by the Eagles in the Derby. I mean, for you as a Frio fan, I mean, I know Gemma Houghton has been an absolute marvel up front. She looks absolutely electric. I'm thoroughly looking forward to seeing how she progresses through the rest of the year. But I mean, both as a Frio fan, but as a AFL correspondent, I mean, what were your kind of thoughts on this game? And was it as close as the final score was, or was it kind of more of the weather throwing a factor into this game?
I think it's a combination of both. But the first thing I want to do is probably say something that might sound very strange to people out in WA, which is I have to give the Eagles a lot of credit. Um, not that I'm so one-eyed that I can't give them credit, but it
Mm-hmm.
pains me sometimes to give West Coast. They're arch rivals. It's hard to do that.
Yes.
But West Coast surprised me. They surprised me that their morale was as high as it was. I mean, here it was. They lost Dana Hooker to the most freakish of accidents, and she's out for the year. And Emma Swanson, credit to her, she was able to rally the troops. And I was very surprised with the way the Eagles were moving the ball. They took a lot of marks. They were very clean with the ball when Frio seemed to struggle. And West Coast were in the match all the way, really, until late in the fourth quarter. So they were playing under the same conditions that the Dockers were. So you have to give credit to them. They were cleaner and were able to do more with the ball. Now, the thing that really came into play, though, was that Dockers back line standing up and the midfield preventing them from advancing anywhere in the second half of the match. Um, the Dockers had plenty of opportunities. The scoreline shows, kicking 2-11. Now, yeah, that's going to be a definite factor of that wet weather. And, Gemma Houghton had another sensational goal when she snapped across her body. It's interesting. I've interviewed Gemma and talked with her about it once. And sometimes, she is such a graceful athlete and she is so swift that sometimes her body is moving faster than she even realizes. So that she can't sometimes set herself and do those things. She had a running shot on goal that sailed to the left for a behind. And so, if she, and in the week before, she kicked 3 goals. And if she had kept her feet a couple of times, she might have had 6. So she is somebody that can tear the game open. Another player I love watching, and who I think is a really electric player, is Gabby O'Sullivan, who is a little bit unheralded. And it's interesting because Gabby has some background in the United States because she was a point guard for a U.S. Women's college basketball team. And, she is so nimble and she is so quick to get to the ball and she goes so hard at the ball. It's really exciting to watch her play. So I think she and Gemma, when they get their motors running, they're really exciting to watch. And the one thing that was also interesting, too, you had 2 players in Swanson and Evie Gooch for Fremantle who are both firefighters, which I think is great in some way for the league. I mean, how cool is it that you had 2 people who work as firefighters off doing this really life-saving work in the first part of the week with the bushfires in WA, and
Mm-hmm.
then playing in the footy match at the end. That was pretty incredible.
Yeah,
Um,
that I did actually
so
see that, and
yes,
I thought that was really, really cool. It's a great
oh
story,
yeah,
and just the fact that she was
yeah,
able to celebrate that and all the great work that they do. And I mean, I know last year they
yeah.
had all those crazy bushfires throughout there, but I've been keeping an eye on that. I'm glad everybody is. They've been trying to contain them as much as possible, and the rain was helpful. But I thought that was really, really cool. Not trying to interrupt you. I'll let you return
No,
to.
no,
I
no
just had to throw
problem.
that
But
in.
yeah. Well, the other thing is too, if of all the players that all this background drama did not affect, it was Kiara Bowers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she is so locked in. I mean, again, it's really something that if she doesn't have 10 tackles by quarter time, you're wondering if something is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like she's spoiling the fans with her ability to tackle and her ability, her chase on the ball, her possession gathering. She kicked the first goal of the match, and it's just funny because in the first round, um, there was some opponent who really had the unwise thought that she could actually try and sell candy to Kiara Bowers, and she ended up getting flattened. Yeah, you are not ever going to get the ball on a run and carry situation past Kiara Bowers. I'm sorry. And this is again when we talk about the difference between the men's and the women's game, is that Kiara Bowers is a better tackler than most of the male players, and she could totally teach the guys a thing or two about tackling. She's one of the best tackling players in footy I've ever seen. Um, there's just no getting around her, and she's just been such a linchpin to Fremantle's success. And so so she really stood up. I think someone that also has really impressed me so far for Fremantle is Janelle Cuthbertson in the back line. She has been really strong, and Steph Kane coming back last week also did very well. So it was one of those things where in wet weather conditions, it's always going to be tougher on a forward line. And Sabrina Duffy with her low center of gravity is really kind of made for that type of footy. And I still stand by Fremantle having one of the best forward lines in the competition. The one thing that does concern me about Fremantle a little bit is the ruck division. And Mim Strom is very young, and she's ambitious and a quick learner. But let's think about it. She's also 18. Her body isn't fully mature, and she's going up against bigger bodies. And it was ironic that you had Paris Laurie, who is an ex-Docker, really control the contests in large part for West Coast. And one wrinkle that Fremantle throw in that I think is really a nice kind of wild card is Roxy Rue, who's got a really freakish vertical leap. And she's not nearly the tallest player on the field. And it's interesting. You just think that she's tall because she has such a high vertical leap and she's a high flyer. And so I think that if Trent Cooper can mix it up a little bit, that might be the way to go in those ruck contests. But I wonder how Frio's ruck division will go up against someone like an Emma King, someone like a Sharni Norder of Collingwood, somebody like a Rhiannon Watt of St. Kilda. So I think that's an area to watch.
Definitely, for sure. And that athleticism, sometimes I know in the men's game that their Majak Daw and Alir Lear were put in there with their athleticism. So sometimes it works. It really kind of depends on how it kind of goes. But man, an absolutely amazing round of footy. I read your article. I thought it was absolutely awesome. I'll definitely try to make sure we put it out there when this episode comes out to make sure you get a few more reads for that.
I just hope I get a few more tips right.
Oh, that'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Gold Coast have made me look bad. Richmond have made me look bad so far. So I mean,
Oh,
I got to get it together.
It'll happen. Come on, maybe who knows? Maybe this will work out for us. So, we kind of discussed it right off the bat, starting with this was Pride Round, and one of the things that I saw a lot of discussions in several of the podcasts that I listened to, and I think it's a good thing to discuss is so the AFLW has been super on getting this Pride Round and the first ever Pride Round in a major sport in Australia, and unfortunately, I hate to say it, I'm a little disappointed that we only have five LGBTQ jerseys. Yes, you have the rainbows on the fields, which is awesome. A few other teams threw it on the socks, but in all, I was semi-disappointed in the lack of participation by some of these clubs into joining Pride Round, when I know this has been a major point of emphasis for many of the players on many of these teams. I mean, I don't know. Am I off on this? Being a little disappointed that we only had five special jerseys.
I don't know. I would have to say that maybe it takes giving it a little bit more time.
Mm-hmm.
I know that for Guernseys that there has to be a lot of advance notice, and I think that maybe COVID might have had something to do with the ability to manufacture and produce the Guernseys and get them all out to everybody in a short amount of time because they're probably made overseas. That could be one thing, and I'm not trying to say that it's a reasonable excuse for it. But I think hopefully more teams will be involved next year. And, let's be frank, because there are so many girls on the different sides that are in same-sex relationships, either dating or marriages, that's really representing the population of the league. And I think it's really cool that the Dockers have one of the only married couples in sports, in Kara and Ebony Antonio. Um, it's a wonderful situation, and in some ways, women's sports are much farther ahead in that respect than men's leagues are. Uh, men's leagues have done things like have pride games now and then, but I can't really imagine, and it's a shame that we can't
Mhm.
imagine anytime soon that we couldn't see an openly gay male player on a footy club and being welcomed and being accepted, or being able to be who he might be. And I've talked to different uh, people around AFLW who've really said that the environment of people being able to be themselves can only help. Not only, I mean, it's perfectly logical to think that if someone is free to be authentic and to be who they are, that it just makes for a healthier workplace. It makes for a healthier team attitude, and it makes for a better team. And I look forward to the day when male sports possibly can evolve to that point where it won't matter. Uh, I know for me, it would not matter. I wouldn't care. I wouldn't give a whit, uh, about the sexual orientation, or actually, no, let me rephrase that. And I even hate that I have to say this, but there's nothing that would be bothersome, offensive, or whatever about an openly gay male player on Fremantle, or any club like that, because you're trying to win games of footy, right? And you want people to be able to be who they are, and it's just a struggle both in this country and in Australia to get to that point where everyone can just accept people for whom they are. So I'm looking forward to the day where hopefully we can look at an openly gay male footy player and regard him with no greater wonder than someone who's a left foot kick,
Mhm.
you know? Because, I mean, come on, people. This is the 21st century. Why is it even, why that would offend, why same sex relationships would offend anybody is just kind of beyond me,
Well,
you know?
unfortunately, not everybody is accepting of things. Some people are their personal opinion they have to put on others, and unfortunately, it is the sad part of our society. It is rather infuriating, um, for somebody that, I mean, it's I have many friends that are in same-sex marriages, or in same-sex relationships, and that it does not bother me whether they are male, whether they are female. They're a person. That I they're their mental state and their health is all that matters to me. They're a friend. That's all that matters. I don't care
Yeah. And
who they call husband, who they call wife, so on and so forth. It is none of my business. I live my life trying to be the best person I can be, not trying to tell others how to do their own. Unfortunately, that kind of goes into a whole nother podcast, unfortunately. But I do want to
yeah,
express that I am an ally of both. Like I said, I have chatted with the girls and chicks talking footy, and I'm proud of that. I'm very, very proud that I have had that connection with those lovely ladies there. They're awesome. It is so much fun to chat with them, and they're very, very knowledgeable. They know their footy, and I love that about them. So, and their
yeah.
involvement in the Pride round, and one of the things that I do take pride in with the Swans is that they do the Pride game every year. They have the rainbow. They have the rainbow jerseys and Guernseys and socks, and that they sell at their at the Swan store. In fact, that's one of my next things is I would love to get a rainbow Guernsey for
Yeah,
myself to have for myself. So I think
sure.
in the long run, these male players that are of homosexual feelings, if they don't feel comfortable, they just need to be shown that they're not going to be ostracized. They're not going to be treated any differently. You're a footy player. That's all that matters to me. Your personal
Oh,
life is none of my business. I am a
yeah,
fan.
and then
I am a supporter.
yeah,
That's all I am. And that's I think the biggest thing I
and
think a
and
lot of
and
people
you
need
and
to
you
do.
like me, you like me are both allies, because I mean I
Hmm.
teach young people, and just as I would never want to see one of my students being bullied for who they are. I feel the same way about adults, and I'm in San Francisco, which has been a long time, haven, of course, for the LGBTQIA community, and that's important. It is part of the fabric and part of the culture of San Francisco, and we're proud of that out here. And I just don't know what to say any more about bigotry than to try and combat it at every turn. Because as someone of color, uh, I am not fully free until everybody is, and I cannot sit here and talk about Black Lives Matter and not say that LGBTQI lives matter as well. So yeah, I take a very strong stance on that issue. And so yeah, I'm hoping that not only in the footy world but in society, we're going to get to a point where that is no longer something that's a bone of contention for people.
Yeah, and I think it's a wonderfully said and a great message, and I hope the people that see that can understand that this is we want what's best, but not only for footy but for society in the long run. So there's one other topic that I'd love to talk about is I know COVID has kind of thrown everything into the spin cycle. Nothing has been normal. We just found out the round 3 fixtures, I think yesterday or the day before recording. Is there any part of you that is a little bit leery that the fact that none of these teams are going to know who they play at the pace it's going until 3 or 4 days before they're supposed to play? I mean, it me as a coach, it would be very, very frustrating to go, okay, I don't know who I'm playing for 3 days, and I've got to pick a game plan, how we're going to approach it, how we're going to train, what's our style. I mean, in some situations, these girls are really going to be tested on their retention in these games over these next few weeks. I mean, do you see it maybe affecting games?
I think it could, but at the same time, I kind of look at it with a glass half full kind of perspective. Last year, being a high school teacher, uh, we had to go over various scenarios about whether we were going to be teaching from home, whether we're going to have hybrid classes, how many people would be in front of us, whether we would be at school. And you know what we did? We adapted. And I think that's what you're going to see. I think the best teams are going to be the ones that adapt. The best coaches are going to be the ones who adapt. And, I mentioned Kiara Bowers, and, she had one full day of training. And I remember on the pregame interview, her talking about how she just really decided that she was going to go all in and have a lot of stuff at home that she was going to do. So you saw how well Adelaide did in that adversity. So I think that the teams that are the hungriest to succeed are really going to adapt and adapt well. Um, and one of the old Frio coaches that I learned a lot from was Ross Lyon, and talked about how he wanted the Dockers to be a no excuses football club. And I think at the end of the season, we're going to see the club that's going to take out the crown being the one that offers no excuses. Yeah, it sucks not to know exactly who you're going to play, how many training sessions you're going to have. Um, but I think as both sides demonstrated last week with in the Western Derby, um, that was a credible game of football, and they didn't look the worse for wear, and they looked like they both put out great effort and prepared as best they could.
Definitely, for sure. That is a great
And then
transition.
the other bottom line is they are playing. So, and let's
For
think
sure.
about that for a second.
For
Let's think
sure.
about how every woman in the league had her season interrupted and cut off, and there's no champion and all that kind of stuff. So I think that I think to a woman, they're all feeling like, hey, at least we are playing.
Hmm.
And that, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not easy to have all these other kinds of hindrances, but we're playing.
Definitely, for sure. And they're not playing in a hub too. That's another thing you got to admit, that they're still playing at home. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great transition, and I think we have to go, and you kind of discussed a little bit. We got to talk week 3, and we got to go through some tipping. And as we kind of said, this is a round I am thoroughly looking forward to. So many absolutely intriguing games. Let's kick it off. Game number 1 going on Friday. Geelong versus the Western Bulldogs at GMHBA. Gil, who do you have in this game and why?
Okay, I'm going to go with Western Bulldogs in this one. Geelong still have yet to put together a consistent, solid 4 quarters, and even though they're at home, I like Western Bulldogs making the trip. They have been really good so far, 1-1. I want to correct that out there because I made a mistake of saying that they were 2-0 in an early edition of that copy. They're 1-1, but look very good last week. Um, you've got a couple of really strong players. Ellie Blackburn has gotten off to a ripping start. Isabel Huntington moving into the forward line and kicking goals, and they've done really well. And I would definitely go with the Western Bulldogs in this one. Definitely the doggies.
Yeah, definitely. I think I'll agree with you on that one. I think the Cats are still a little bit vulnerable. They're still kind of learning to kind of play the team footy. Yes, being at home will help them a little bit, but unfortunately, I thought the same thing when they played North, and North is such a good team. And I think this Doggies team, I think they kind of they were a little skeptical kicking in front of goal against St. Kilda. They were a tiny bit better in their game, and they're tiny bit better in their game last week. And I think they're starting to slowly kind of get it. Um, their coaching has been really good. I'm hoping Danny Marshall will be back in this week. We'll cross our fingers, but I don't
Yeah.
know. When you win, it's hard sometimes to take somebody off, so we'll definitely have to see. But I'm gonna go with the doggies. But I think this is within a couple of goals. I think the Cats keep us close. I have a feeling this one may be closer than some people think. So we go from that.
You might be more optimistic than me on that one, but we'll
I
see.
don't know. For some weird reason I always hope some of these games are close, just because I think they make
Oh
it
yeah.
more intriguing and more fun to talk about. And unfortunately, then we go to a very interesting game here. GWS against the Gold Coast Suns down in Blacktown. Oh boy, do we have any faith in the Suns?
I think I can tell you that I think they're going to score more than two behinds in this one.
At least we hope.
Um, yeah, at least we hope. And it's going to be interesting because there was some talk last week about trying to get Sarah Perkins more into the match and putting her in the middle on occasion. They might really want to do that this time. Um, I think the thing that the Suns are going to have to do, they're going to have to come out super focused, which seems obviously to be a problem. I think GWS are very hungry, and I'm going to go with GWS in this one. And I think adversity can be a real means to rally around each other. They're playing at home, and they're, let's face it, playing a very weak Gold Coast side, one that has really just been very enigmatic and kind of checked out. And I kind of see the Giants getting over on this one. I'm going with the
Yeah,
Giants.
I the dancing really kind of makes me question the focus of this team a little bit. And I think GWS is so hungry. Like I said, they've dealt with a couple of crazy first rounds. I think this is if I'm GWS, I'm licking my chops for this game. This is a perfect bounce back game to get your season going, to kind of get everything kind of straightened up. Yes, you're in an 0-2 hole, but you still got a shot. You win a couple of games here, you get a couple of bounces, and who knows. But I'm going to go with GWS. I think this is a 3-goal game, honestly. I just don't see the Suns having the team to be able to hold back. And this GWS team has got some talent. They just need to get going. I think this is a perfect opportunity for them. Now, a very intriguing match coming up here with the St. Kilda Saints facing the Carleton Blues. And you hate saying it, but is this Carleton's must-win game?
I think it is, and that's why I expect them to win this one. Carlton are too good a club to be in this deep a hole for too long. I think that if they don't win this one, I think it's time to sound the alarm bells. They really have to get up and get started early. I really like the way that Taylor Harris is looking last week. She was looking really dangerous. Always like Darcy Vesio and what she does around the ground. Maddie Prestapakis. I agree with you that she has been kind of frustrated in the first two rounds, but I expect her to really get off the chain. I am going to go with Carlton. I'm going to go ahead and limb here. I'm going to say this is going to be a blowout. I would say Carlton are going to play angry, and the Saints will be at their mercy. So I'm going with Carlton by a big margin in this one.
Oh boy, this one I don't know. I've seen both the Saints games, and I think they've got so much youth in that midfield that I think this midfield battle is really going to be who wins this game. Because I think if St. Kilda can keep some of those young stars with the footy in their hands, Patricios, and I can't remember the other one, another girl's name. She number 6, I think is I'm gonna get the names by the end of the season. I promised you AFLW fans, I really will. But I like their midfield. I think their midfield has a little bit more talent than I think some people want to give it credit for. It may be young, but it's growing, it's getting better. I think this is really gonna kind of be, it's almost gonna be a ruck battle to see who the
Yeah.
rucks can get the advantage to in the midfield. Because I think if St. Kilda can get up on the ruck battles and get the majority of the first footy, I think St. Kilda can win this. I think this is going to be a tight game. I think both teams defensively, the biggest question is, I know St. Kilda had one of their better defensive players out last game with a concussion. The question is, will she be back or not? So I really kind of see the midfield is going to be it. I agree with you. I think St. Kilda just doesn't have enough talent there in the midfield to get by the Prismarcus. Like I said, Taylor Harris is starting to catch everything, and she's now providing more and more awesome pictures of pack marks and stuff like that. I thought that was absolutely awesome. I'm gonna go with the Blues. I'm a little hesitant on this one. I'm not as confident on this one at all. I think the Saints are going to keep this one close. I'm
Okay.
kind of the opposite. I think this is within 2 goals. I think this is going to be a close one. I know
Okay.
people, this tends to be a common one with me. I like close games, but we'll see. But I'm gonna lean
Except when
Carlton.
it's your team. Except when it's your team trying to build percentage.
Definitely for sure. But I think Carlton will win this, but I think this will be close. And it will not shock me if the Saints pull this one off. The Saints, like I said, they have some talent there. To the
Well, Georgia Patrikios, absolutely. Yes,
she is a
she is
star.
absolutely a star, no
She is
doubt.
absolutely a ball magnet. She finds it. She's going to be one whale of a gun as she grows, as she gets older, as she's going to be one fun person to watch for the Saints. So then we move from that very intriguing game to just as intriguing one. The super talented North Melbourne goes to Casey Fields to face the Melbourne Demons. And in my opinion, this is the make or break it. We get to see, are the Demons for real or not? Are they for real, or has North Melbourne got too
They're for
much for them?
Melbourne are for real, but North is too much for them. Um, North just have so many weapons, just so many, and they can beat you in so many ways. And I think that Melbourne will put up a very valiant effort here. And also, I don't think it might be. I don't think it's the first time that these sides might see each other because we don't know how finals are going to shake out. Very good test for Melbourne here to really see how they measure up against North. And I wouldn't be surprised later down the track if Melbourne are high placed on the ladder and playing and going deep into the finals. But I just think that North are a juggernaut, and I don't see them losing this one. I think weather conditions might have a big thing to do with it. There was a strong breeze last week um, out of Casey Fields, but I like North in this one, and I think it's going to be a tight match.
Yeah, I think North has just got so much talent. I think this will be an exposure game for Melbourne. The biggest thing is, can Melbourne keep it close? If they can keep it within a couple of goals, I think you feel a little bit more confident for Melbourne as you go on. I agree with you. North Melbourne just has so much talent. They're such a deep team. It's going to be very hard. Casey Fields, from what I keep hearing, tends to always be very breezy. So the goal kicking might be interesting. Is who can be more
Yeah,
accurate in front of goal may decide this one as well, which I think North Melbourne has a little bit more accuracy in their forward line than they do than Melbourne. So we go from that one to
true,
the
true,
absolute.
but it's interesting. But before we
No,
get
no,
there
no,
though,
no.
let's
You're
let's
good.
talk
You're good.
about Melbourne's hockey a little bit because Melbourne have kicked very accurately this season. So I don't know. This could be something where they can use that field, their home field, to their advantage. So, but yeah, they've been deadly accurate, but um, just North of just so much going on there. I really would find it very hard for Melbourne to overcome that.
Yeah, definitely for sure. And we have to do it. I know this is going to be difficult for you, sir, but can you take the purple hat off? Let's put on our even, even analysis hat on for just a second. I know you've got your Dockers thing in the background. I absolutely love it. Adelaide versus Frio at Norwood Oval. And I love this. At least for me, sir, this is at 8:10 my time. I am going to be with a bucket of popcorn watching this game. I cannot wait for this game. Who do you got and why?
Okay, well, I'll tell you what. Now, sand gropers, this is the affectionate nickname for West Australians. I know I am one of you. I'm an honorary sand groper, so don't revoke my card. Don't revoke my card. But I'm going with Adelaide in this one, and I'll tell you why. Adelaide just has too many people to try and account for right now, and I don't think that the Dockers have been really, really fully tested yet by a really strong side. Adelaide are really finding their feet. They're in top form and they're playing at home. And this is a deck that the Dockers have had trouble on. And I just don't see this early in the season um, uh, Frio being able to match what Adelaide has. I would think that perhaps later in the season, this is another one of these matches where I think that these two sides might see each other in the finals. I wouldn't be surprised at all. And I think that I might feel a little bit differently if the Dockers were playing on their home deck. But as you were saying earlier, Donnie, with any time you bring back Erin Phillips, and she's essentially a new recruit. Chelsea Randall is essentially a new recruit after missing all of last year. And, you throw that into the mix. And I think Trent Cooper is going to be really challenged to think who he's going to tag. I think one of the really most intriguing battles that we're going to see is Stevie Lee Thompson down back playing either on Sabrina Duffy and then someone else playing on Gemma Houghton. I think the big thing is where Adelaide might have an edge is the midfield and being able to give a lot of supply to their players up forward. And I think Frio is going to be a little challenged in that way. I could see it being close for a long period of time. It would, putting my Frio hat on for a second, it would be a pleasant surprise to see Frio pull this one out. But at this point in the season, and based on the form of both sides, I have to give the edge to Adelaide here.
Oh man, and absolutely great points. I don't know. A team with Aaron Phillips on it, it's so hard to pick against them. She's just such a superstar. She can go anywhere on the ground. She's dangerous everywhere. I do agree with you. I think Frio's got some dangerous things up front, but the biggest question is, can they get him the footy? I mean, you can have the best
Exactly.
full forward in the world, but if they aren't getting supply, it doesn't really matter. North Melbourne is a perfect example in the men's. Ben Brown can kick you 60 goals, but if he's not getting supply, it doesn't really matter. So, I mean,
And
it's
we have
like
to wonder
buying.
how many Ben's going to kick this year with his knee problems. So with Melbourne.
I'm not sure if he's going to play much at all. Very much.
Yeah.
I'm really worried that Melbourne may have gotten a guy that may not play very much. But this is women's, not men, so
Yeah.
we'll revert back to it.
Oh, of
I
course.
just,
Well,
I,
one other thing about Adelaide too, and Frio here, um, just that you've got a side that is just so hungry in Adelaide. And not that Frio aren't hungry, but the law of averages says you're not going to win every single match you play. You
mhm,
know, and Frio were undefeated last year. Every side in the competitions has improved, and at some point, and maybe it's not this year, but Frio are going to lose a match eventually. And this is too good a competition to steamroll everybody week in and week out. So if you're looking at it from a Dockers perspective too, I think this could be, if it's going to be a loss, it could be a really great learning experience, and probably not the first time that these two sides are going to see each other.
definitely for sure. But the one counteraction that I could say, in my personal opinion, is I think being tested sometimes when you're not expected to can actually make your team better. So last week's game against
Oh,
West Coast
absolutely.
could actually
Yeah.
be quite a benefit because Adelaide had such an easier time. Now, some people could then counteract and say, well, you had a tougher game because you're in you're in wet conditions, there's more tackling, there could be more wear and tear on the body. So there's come see come saw. I've seen it both ways. I'm gonna tip Adelaide, but Frio is just such a talented team that I think this game is going to be the game of the round. If I had to star and say, this is the game you need to watch, this is it. This is the game that could potentially be a grand final at the end of the year. It would not shock me a bit. Would not shock me a bit.
Yeah,
North Melbourne is the
I
only
would totally
team
agree.
North Melbourne is the only other team I could see right now, like going right now from what I've seen. North Melbourne is the only other team I could potentially see in a grand final. These two teams are the
Yeah.
best right now. This will be a
Yeah, and then
huge matchup for the latter.
yeah. And the other thing too, when you talked about, when you wear your team's hat, you tend to be a little bit more critical of,
Hmm.
just in life, and just as in life, you are more critical of the people you're closer to because you see them all the time and you
Hmm.
spend time with them and you know their weaknesses, you know their strengths, and all of that stuff. So, yeah, so that's what I'm seeing, and I think this potentially either way could be a real boon to Fremantle toward the end of the season, as it could be for Adelaide too. But I think you're right; this could absolutely be a grand final preview.
Definitely for sure. And then from that intriguing game to another intriguing game, Brisbane hosting Collingwood. And this is one I looked at a couple of times. And this one's hard for me because I think Brisbane has always been a tough team. Again, Brisbane played a Gold Coast team, put up a lot of points. They have a lot of confidence. But this is a Collingwood team that's just so good defensively. They really stifled Carlton early. They stifled their last opponent. I'm gonna go Carlton on the road, just because I
Sorry,
like
Collingwood.
defense. I'm Collingwood. My apologies.
Mhm.
I'm gonna go
That's okay.
Collingwood on this one, just because I think that defense wins championships, and I think this defense has been so solid this year that they're gonna be tough to score on for sure.
I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to go with Collingwood on this one. I think that it was a little bit of a mirage last week. Brisbane are a really strong team, but I don't want to make this beat up on the Gold Coast week. But if you look at the opposition they had, and if you look at Collingwood's opponents in the first two rounds, no doubt Collingwood has had stronger opposition, and they've done really well. That midfield that they have is pretty darn close to being unstoppable. And I think that in this one, Brisbane, they are playing at home. It'll be a benefit to them. But I just think that Collingwood so far has the look about it of a team on a mission, really eager. And, let's talk about this for a second, too. We hadn't really wanted to talk much about the whole Eddie Maguire stepping down thing. But as you say, too, from adversity sometimes can be a motivational factor. This is a
Definitely.
week in which Collingwood as a brand is kind of taken a hit. Their leader has been under fire and all of that. And maybe this will transfer over to the women's team really wanting to represent the club in the best way it can. And I think that might be a little bit of an extra push. So I will definitely pick Collingwood. I think this one's going to be a close one, but I will take Collingwood in this one.
I agree. I think this one could be under 10 points, and I do see your point there with the try to pull the brand together, but you could almost counteract it too. Is that, are they going to be distracted with all of the drama, with all of the kind of negative media coverage after all of the kind of the report coming out, and then the absolutely atrocious handling that Eddie did when he started the news conference, and then stepping down earlier today. I just I'm hoping that the Collingwood girls are not focused on anything else besides footy.
Yeah.
I'm gonna bank on it that I think they will, because they're not going to be in Melbourne. They're going to be in Brisbane. I think that's
And
going to
they're
help
not
them
going to be bombarded with questions the way that the men's team would. They're not going to
for
be
sure.
taking questions on this all the time because they weren't really affected by it.
Definitely.
Although with Eddie, I've been on his show once before, but he just had, and he was certainly kind to me. But it's sad to see that he has the propensity for stepping in it whenever there's a social issue involved. And but yeah, I would really think here that Collingwood would have an edge. They're not going to be dealing with it as much. You make a great point that they're going to be outside of the bubble, quite literally and figuratively outside of Melbourne. And yeah, I definitely would think Collingwood are going to handle this one. It's going to be a hard fought match, but I will take Collingwood.
Yeah, definitely one I'm going to look forward to watching too. And last game of the round, and I don't know, sir, maybe, just maybe, we might see the Richmond Tigers finally get their win. Richmond hosting West Coast. I don't know. I kind of feel the Tigers on this one. I'm gonna go
I
out
do
on a
too.
limb. I'm feeling the Tigers. I think their forward line. I'm hoping, crossing my fingers, Katie Brennan gets the Gil Griffin hex off of her and finally puts one between the big sticks. I gotta throw that one out there. Just had to have a little fun, but I've liked them. They haven't. They've played tough opponents. I think they've played
Yeah.
well. They just haven't gotten some of the breaks that they need. I think this is a West Coast team that they're coming off a tough game in the rain, heavy legs. Now you got to travel across. Now you got to travel. I like the Tigers in this one.
I do too. And by the way, I don't. For those of you watching, I did reach around for my phone for a second because somewhere in here I have a picture of myself and Katie Brennan that I'm going to try and find a little later as we talk about this. But yeah, I really think that Richmond, that this weekend is as good as any, as a time for them to get that first win, that elusive first win in AFLW footy, because um, you're right. They have played some very tough opponents. They're playing on their home deck. They're not traveling across the country. And this hex on Katie Brennan, it absolutely has to end at some point. It does. She's too good a player for this to go on forever. And Sabrina Frederick looked dangerous up front. And West Coast, let's face it, they hung in there very well against Fremantle last week. And by the way, Sand Gropers, I'm not hating on West Coast, okay? I have my neutral hat on here. I'm not hating on y'all, okay? And I gave y'all credit at the beginning for a well played match. Um, but one of the things that happened with West Coast, Neem Kelly is out with a hand injury, or she's recovering from a hand injury. That can't be too good a thing. And then also Dana Hooker, not having her around. Um, that is definitely going to have some impact. So I am going to say that I like Richmond in this one. I do like them to get by, and next to Frio, of course, they've got the best club song in the land. So hopefully, we'll have a chance to. Sorry for being a little biased on that. So we'll get to hear them now. I don't mean to be rude. I am looking for my picture here with Katie Brennan, and I'm totally listening here. But I do want to see if I can find that here, because maybe showing it on screen will help. Hold on a second. I think I'm almost there. Hold on a second. Yeah, here it is. Here it is. Can you see this?
That is awesome. That is great.
Yes, that is
She's an
Katie and me.
absolute gun. She's an absolute gun.
Oh, she totally is. She totally is. I oops, let me hold it over here. So this is from 5 years ago in Andy Marr's studio. I had no idea who she was. Um, before meeting her, except knowing that she was a footy player. And so I did some research and found out exactly how good she is, and just wish her nothing but the best. Um, and I do really think that they're going to get over on West Coast. This is going to be, I think, a celebratory day for the Tigers, and a
Definitely. And
close. And I think it's going to be fairly close, but I think the Tigers will win this one.
oh, the one thing I gotta give it is so many of these matches this week are so competitive that I think this could be one of the best rounds of footy this entire year. I am so looking forward to it. The weekend cannot come fast enough. So we have gone through round two. This has been an absolutely gone through round two. We've previewed round three. This has been an absolutely awesome conversation. You and I, Gil, we can always chat footy. It's so much fun to chat with you. It's great to see you again, sir. I think
Absolutely.
ladies and
Yeah, my
gentlemen,
pleasure.
that will be the end of our episode. We can talk forever, but I think we do need to make sure that if you want to listen to anything else, you can. So we will bid you all good night. Gil, thank you again so much. We'll keep in
No,
contact. Maybe
thank
we'll
you,
have you
brother.
hop on
It's
later
great.
on
It's
this
great to
year.
have you. Great to have you out here.
Definitely for sure.
Yeah,
And
absolutely. And folks, if you want to read my musings, uh, visit footyology.com.au. I have a weekly preview of the matches and a weekly roundup. So Sunday night in my household, or actually Saturday night, my household, I'm staying up all hours of the night to hit my deadline. So thank you to Rowan Connolly and Luke Mason for helping me produce that and produce it well. Those two are really great. So hope you all definitely check it out. Thank you.
we will definitely try to definitely make sure and reach out and add that tag that when this episode comes out, previewing a little bit later on in the week. Thank you again, sir. Fourth and Long fans, this is your AFL and AFLW correspondent signing off for the day. You guys have a nice night.